After being reborn, the first thing my cousin Amanda Brown and I did was break up with our current fiancés. In our previous life, Amanda and I both got married. With her gentle and quiet personality, she married the cold and distant Navy Colonel Kevin Sinclair. Because Kevin missed their wedding anniversary to attend a friend's birthday party, Amanda wanted an explanation, but he didn't care. They ended up in a Cold War for 50 Christmases. Meanwhile, I had a fiery temper yet married Tom Smith, an accountant at a car factory. Tom was refined and proper, but he complained that I talked too loudly and had no fashion sense. We argued constantly, and eventually, he preferred sleeping at his office rather than coming home. Our marriage didn't even last one Christmas before we divorced. When I opened my eyes again, Amanda and I had returned to our wedding day. Get down here now. Tom is such a good man, yet you insist on running off to that distant island. You're so stubborn. Seeing my mother's disappointed face as she chased after the bus made me sad. But thinking about how Amanda and I each ended up in our previous lives, I told myself my decision wasn't wrong. Hawaii might be far away, and Kevin might be difficult to get along with, but that didn't matter. Even if I divorced him, I could live independently, but Amanda couldn't. In her previous life, after marrying Kevin, they lived in a Cold War due to misunderstandings. Such a gentle person as Amanda was ruined by Kevin. So in this rebirth, looking at the melancholic Amanda, I decisively started packing my bags. I said, Amanda, I'll go marry Kevin. Tom may not seem ambitious, but he has a good temperament. You two should get along well. Amanda stood up excitedly, but then firmly said, Kevin isn't easy to get along with. I can't let you bear my misfortune. I replied, Amanda, it's okay. Christmas Grandpa didn't specifically designate who had to be Kevin's fiancé. Although Kevin is difficult, I'm confident. If life becomes unbearable in Hawaii, I'm not afraid. I demonstrated a set of freestyle fighting moves right there. Amanda broke into laughter through her tears and reluctantly agreed. Unlike Amanda's gentleness, I practiced combat since childhood and am used to solving problems with force. That's why Tom, who considered himself an intellectual, and I never saw eye to eye, I found him tedious. He thought I was violent. Our marriage was unhappy, and we parted ways before one Christmas had passed. So this time around, I decided to let Amanda marry him. Tom lived close to home. Having family nearby would be better than Amanda being lonely and depressed on Hawaii Island like in her previous life. I held Amanda's hand and pleaded until she finally nodded helplessly. Fine, I agree. And so, I took my luggage and boarded the flight to Hawaii. I just didn't expect my mother to catch up so quickly. I thought, I left a letter explaining everything clearly. What else is she worried about? I'm going to Hawaii. If I can't make it, I'll come back on my own. I shouted to my mother as she ran after the car. After a long journey, I finally arrived in Honolulu. I then boarded a military jeep heading to the base, hoping to get some sleep, but suffered from severe motion sickness. When I got off, my face was pale. I sat at the military post waiting for Kevin to pick me up. Thinking about how disheveled I looked, I felt relieved, believing that someone as delicate as Amanda would never have endured this hardship. Kevin, why is there a strange smell in here? I feel so uncomfortable. Just as I was lost in thought, a sugary voice rang out. I looked up. A girl with her hair tied back, looking rather frail, was covering her nose and complaining to the man beside her. I glanced at the tall, straight-backed man next to her and felt somewhat helpless. You're Kevin, right? I'm your fiancé, Audrey Carter. Take a look at this marriage agreement, and if there's no problem, hurry up and arrange a place for me to rest. With that, I pushed my suitcase toward his feet, completely ignoring the girl's hurt expression, then stood up and headed for the exit. Kevin, does she hate me? Lily Thompson asked, looking dejected. Already exhausted, I immediately lost my temper. Are we that close? This is literally the first time I've met you. Kevin, can you hurry up? After saying this, I ignored them completely and stormed off. I hadn't gone far when I sensed someone following me. It was Kevin. He was carrying my luggage, his expression cold, and he had absolutely no intention of explaining himself. I thought to myself, no wonder Amanda was so miserable in her past life. With Kevin being so cold and Amanda so proud, they were bound to be unhappy. But I don't have such a good temper. If I'm not happy, I'll make sure they aren't either. Since our engagement had been arranged long ago, Kevin had already received a call from my family and knew I was coming. He had already submitted our marriage application. So, within a couple of days, Kevin and I were married with the blessings of his military colleagues. Kevin's parents had died early, and my family lived far away, so the wedding was attended by his fellow soldiers. The atmosphere was lively, with the military community in high spirits. I'm so envious of Audrey for marrying Kevin. She's so lucky. Unlike me, Lily lowered her head and began sobbing quietly. The previously joyful scene was suddenly filled with nothing but sniffles. The guests exchanged awkward glances, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. Watching Lily slightly trembling back, I smiled and stood on my tiptoes to kiss Kevin. Then I turned to Lily with a smug look and said, yes, I am lucky. Kevin is successful, handsome, and has a great body. Only someone as fortunate as me could marry him. After saying this, I wrapped my arms tightly around Kevin's waist. Then, with a threatening smile, I said to him, isn't that right, Kevin? Kevin's expression remained cold, but his ears suddenly turned red. Before Kevin could speak, Lily looked at him pitifully and said, Kevin, Audrey, please don't misunderstand. I truly came to congratulate you. If Audrey doesn't like me, I'll leave the wedding right now. But, as she spoke, she started crying again. Kevin, remember to pick me up tomorrow. We've spent Christmas together for so many years. Kevin nodded and said, I'll be ready to pick you up tomorrow. Don't worry. Hearing his words, I, who had just been holding Kevin's waist, suddenly threw him to the ground. Everyone looked at me in disbelief. Making plans before the wedding was even over was too much. In their past life, those two had sweetly celebrated their anniversary together, returning without giving Amanda any explanation. But I'm not Amanda. She could tolerate it. I can't. I thought, if Kevin dares to go tomorrow, I'll fight him and then leave this island. If my elders weren't so insistent on keeping that promise, my life in Texas would be incredibly carefree. Lily said, Kevin, are you hurt? Audrey, how could you treat Kevin like this? Lily's face turned red with anger, her gaze toward Kevin full of concern. Kevin quickly straightened up, gave me a meaningful look, and awkwardly replied, I'm fine. Then he came over to hold my hand and said, you'll come with me tomorrow. I looked at Kevin in surprise. Lily was even more incredulous, saying, Kevin, how could you? I'm never speaking to you again. With that, she covered her face and ran out crying. At that moment, Kevin whispered in my ear, However, let's finish the wedding first, and I'll explain everything to you later. The guests didn't dare cause any more trouble. The rest of the wedding proceeded smoothly. Soon after, I sat in our room, pounding the bed in frustration. I thought, what did Kevin mean? Was he trying to trick me just now? That won't work on me. When Kevin pushed open the door and entered, I let out a cold snort. I said, I hate men who can't set clear boundaries. If you want to cheat, we might as well get divorced now. Hearing my words, Kevin frowned and said, we were already engaged. Now that I've married you, I'll take responsibility for you. I sighed helplessly. Kevin, what era are we living in? When we got engaged, I never agreed to stay by your side forever. Kevin seemed irritated by my words, pacing back and forth across the room. Eventually, he sighed, sat down on the edge of the bed, and tried to take my hand. Audrey, there's nothing inappropriate between Lily and me. I genuinely want to be with you. Despite my resistance, he held my hand firmly and said, I'm not good with words. If there's anything you're unhappy about, just tell me, and I'll definitely change. Kevin's expression was serious. Seeing him like this, I felt a bit shy. I nodded and pretended to be nonchalant, saying, fine, I have a bad temper, so as long as you can handle it. After I spoke, seeing Kevin smile, I became flustered with embarrassment. I leaned forward and kissed him. Our breathing grew increasingly rapid. Kevin truly lived up to his reputation as a Navy elite. Before long, he placed his hand on the buttons of my clothes, his gaze intense as he asked, may I? Embarrassed, I gave him a light slap. Seeing my shy expression, Kevin smiled and buried his face in my neck. I'm sorry. I slowly closed my eyes. Kevin, Lily left a letter and has disappeared. A knock at the door. Kevin quickly stood up straight. He said, Audrey, you go to sleep first. I need to go out for a bit. I glared at Kevin angrily and said, with so many people on the base, why does it have to be you who goes looking for her? We just got married today. Kevin got dressed and walked over to me, picking up my coat to help me put it on. We'll go together. The Thompson family saved my life. I can't ignore Lily's situation, so will you come with me? When we return, you can punish me. I paused for a moment, pushed him away, and put on my coat myself. Let's go. I walked out the door without looking at Kevin, clearly displeased. Soon, I felt him grip my hand tightly. I couldn't shake his hand off and glared at him angrily. Walk slowly. Visibility isn't good at night. Kevin completely ignored my anger, holding my hand firmly. We arrived at Lily's house shortly after. Since Lily's parents had passed away early, the naval base had always taken care of her, arranging a small detached cottage for her. Now, people were gathered all around the cottage. The neighbor who first discovered Lily was missing anxiously pushed to the front with a note. Kevin, I don't want to burden everyone anymore. I'm going to join my mom and dad. Looking at this brief message, Kevin frowned and immediately arranged for everyone to spread out to search for Lily. Soon, the entire island where the naval base was located echoed with voices calling for Lily, especially along the coastline where most of the searchers were concentrated. Worried that she might actually harm herself, I also joined the search across this unfamiliar island. However, seeing how many people were already searching the shoreline, I began looking in more secluded areas. I didn't expect to make an unexpected discovery. Why are you here? Where's Kevin? Hearing my footsteps, Lily turned around excitedly from her position on the rocks, but her face immediately fell when she saw it was me. Seeing her standing resentfully on the rocks, I smiled mockingly. Is a man who doesn't even care about you worth risking your life for? I said. Lily stubbornly replied, Kevin and I grew up together, and my parents saved his life. If it weren't for you, I would be his wife. I scoffed. If he truly loved you, he wouldn't have married me. My marriage to Kevin was arranged by our families long ago. You never had a chance, and you never will. Kevin will only be my husband. But if he dares to cheat, I'll make him taste what it's like to face a military tribunal. I doubt either of you could handle that. With that, I turned to leave. Lily clearly had no intention of killing herself. She was just throwing a tantrum. I couldn't be bothered to engage with her any further. I didn't expect Lily to suddenly grab me and whisper in my ear, if we both fell into the sea, would Kevin save you or me? Before I could react, she violently pulled me into the ocean. Completely unprepared, I swallowed several mouthfuls of salty, bitter seawater. Help, Kevin, save me.